Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Halfback Dynasty. My name is Brendan. We are joined today with our co-host, Tyler, a.k.a. the Mohawk Mullet Legend, the Lettuce King. Tyler, how you doing today, my friend? And how would you define your haircut?
Definitely a mullet. First off, I'm doing well. Probably a mullet. My wife and I actually went through a drive-through the other night, and it was Chick-fil-A. So I don't know how it is in Chicago, but Chick-fil-A in Colorado, there's 8 million cars no matter what time it is, and they have literal people that work on the outside of the drive-through taking orders.
Mm-hmm.
And this girl came up to our car, and the first thing she said was, "Bro, I love your mullet." So I guess it's a mullet, man. The 80s is alive. Colorado's a weird place. So, hey, man, I'll just let it ride. So, what do you think, Brendan? What do you think?
It's a mullet for sure. I mean, there's no denying that. I think it's just defined based on how short your sides are cut. You know, if you were to raise the sides being shorter up here, then it turns into a mullet hawk, if that's what they call it. I don't know. Kids these days, man, they'll call it anything, I'm sure.
You think I need to get some lightning bolts in the side, or you think that's a little too much?
That would be pretty epic. That would be epic. Cool, man. Well, I'm glad you're doing well. Yeah, we got some big news on our side here in Chicago. The lady and I actually just committed to a new apartment in the West Loop of Chicago. So
Nice,
we're moving in. Yeah, crazy stuff, dude. We're moving in at the end of April after we get back from Vegas. So it's going to be exciting, man. We're super pumped to move in together and check out a new neighborhood, if you will. Chicago is very interesting to me. So imagine everything's kind of in like a 5 to 7 mile square radius. If you're 1 mile here north or 1 mile west, it's a completely different vibe, man. It's like, it's insane how different things can get, even though you're still really close to everything. So yeah, we couldn't be more pumped, man.
Very New York-esque like that, I'm sure. Big city, you know. Well, congrats, man. That's awesome. That's super exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys have been together for a while, right?
Yeah, man. Pushing 5 years. So since college. And yeah, we're looking at hopefully moving the relationship forward. I can't wait for the next place. It's got a nice little dog park for Winnie, our little schnauzer. So it's cool, man. Rooftop pool, jacuzzi. Wow. I like it. I like it already.
Moving up from the 5x5.
Yeah, hey, well, a 10x10 box, bro.
10x10.
A 10x10. Let's be realistic now. So yeah, I'm excited, man. So I'll keep everybody updated with how that goes. I'll give you a cool little tour once I get there. So first thing I'm setting up is our bar. We're gonna put our bar right there, and I've got a lot of wine, liquor, a lot of Jameson. So we're gonna have a nice little I guess welcome home party. What is that called? A welcoming
housewarming.
Housewarming. Yeah.
That's awesome, Brendan.
That went over my head.
Pumped, man. Congratulations, cool. Man. I guess my first question is maybe the biggest. Where's the trophy going?
Right now it's on the bar, dude. I'm gonna try to maybe set it up. So the way that the apartment complex is set up is it's kind of a big U. So other people can actually see in through our window. And I'm going to put a huge stand right there and just put the trophy facing out the window so everybody knows that there is a Dynasty football legend residing in that particular unit. So
you will be so popular in that complex. People will be knocking on your doors on who to draft, who to drop. Like, hey, man, you're about to go through the roof. Don't forget me, man.
I won't. Don't worry. I also have a plan. Every time I go upstairs to the rooftop to the hot tub, I'll be carrying it in one hand, and then I'm just going to place it down right next to me. It's going to be fun. I can't wait. So we'll get some good photos. Nice. Awesome. Cool. Well, we hope everybody listening is doing well. Another week has passed. Obviously, there's been some small news in the NFL. Nothing too crazy, as Tyler and I have been discussing pre-show. Tyler, some news, I guess. We saw Tyrell Williams signed to the Detroit Lions. I don't think that's much of a game changer, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Williams had that one really good season, which seems like quite a while ago. I want to say he had like two decent seasons, but one was really solid. And then kind of seems like he's battled injuries since. Obviously, he missed all last year. I mean, he's going to come into a system where there's a vacancy with. I can't imagine Marvin Jones sticks around in Detroit.
He's gone.
So if you have Galladay, who again, I mean, it sounds like they're going to tag him. Galladay and Ty Williams on the outside, man, maybe he sees a little bit of resurgence in his career, but I certainly wouldn't be buying into it and going out and moving a first rounder
First-round
for him.
picks.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the coach talk about Chase Edmonds being the workhorse next year, but man, some of the trades I've seen on DLF, it's like, boys, is slow your roll. We see
Yeah.
this every year. Like, if Chase Edmonds was going to be a workhorse when Drake went down, he would have been a workhorse.
Oh,
That's
no
just
doubt.
coach stuff.
No doubt. I
But,
saw a tweet by him that he tweeted like, I'm screenshotting this or whatever the coaches said, saying they're pumped to give him a shot. And he tweeted like he didn't believe that he would be the only workhorse back of the Cardinals. So I don't think he thinks that they're gonna hold true to that. They're probably throwing smoke up in the air, and they'll probably honestly they could draft a running back as early as the second round. So you never know, man. You never know. But yeah, I wouldn't be buying Chase Edmonds. I wouldn't be buying Tyrell Williams. I would be buying Russell Wilson, though, if he comes to Chicago. You surprised me with that news about 10 minutes ago. So that's some big stuff right there, man.
That's huge. Yeah, I was reading the story kind of before we started shooting here, and according to the article, Chicago's all in on trying to get him. The brief article I saw was probably this year's first rounder, next year's first rounder, this year's second, next year's second, and probably a piece or two. I mean, that's a tremendous amount to give in the NFL that can really set you back, but I personally think Russell Wilson's worth it. You have a championship defense that is being completely wasted, and those guys are going to age. The defense will age out of its prime. So I'd go in all in on Wilson. I would find a way to then keep Allen Robinson. I would then say Allen Robinson has a legit shot to be a top. Man, you could even say 6, 5 or 6.
Maybe a top 5 receiver.
10. Yeah, he's been top 10 2 years in a row, and very quietly. You don't even realize he's having that kind of fantasy impact if he's not on your team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be huge. I can't even believe from where we were, a month ago when they said Wilson might be moved, that it was like, yeah, okay. To where we are now, I don't understand it. I would get rid of if it's a coaching thing, I'd get rid of the coach before Russell Wilson. I don't understand how you get from where you were to here so quickly.
Well, do you think Pete Carroll's a Hall of Fame coach?
I think he's a very, very good coach. I mean, I also think Seattle was a product of hitting on a quarterback in the third round that didn't cost you any money for so long. You were able to keep your defense intact. You were able to keep Marshawn Lynch. Like, Russell Wilson made very little money through his first rookie year, which allowed them to be contenders because you could keep all your superstars. So obviously the coach is holding that team together, but man, go back through those teams. That team was stacked. That defense was incredible.
They were good, man. They were good.
But obviously the coach plays a role in that. And, I guess I don't really know what makes a Hall of Fame coach. I don't really follow that side of football as closely, but he's got to be, I'm sure in the talks, he's been around forever. I mean, Carroll's a lot older than he looks.
He's chewed a lot of gum too in his career, man. He's chewed a lot of gum.
A ton of gum. But yeah, I think if Seattle lets Wilson go, that's just a terrible decision. I mean,
my point. Sorry to interrupt.
Wide out there. I just don't understand it.
Absolutely. Yeah. My point was that, I mean, you're saying you would rather fire the coach or let the coach walk, but if you have Pete Carroll, who's a Hall of Fame coach, I mean, are you going to let a Hall of Fame coach walk just like that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think what's going on right now is Russell is probably feeling that the Seahawks are capped where they're at. Like they won't be able to make the jump again to win another Super Bowl. So it's kind of like Brady. I mean, Brady opened up the door for these legendary QBs to make moves and escape where they've played their entire career. to either A, prove more to people around them, or B, prove more to themselves. So I think Tom Brady was starting to feel that he might be capped with the Patriots, even though the Patriots are a playoff team almost every year. So maybe that's like what Russell Wilson is feeling like. Like, it's kind of like the Saints, like Drew Brees and the Saints. They always get knocked out in the playoffs, always, right? So are you going to stay with the Saints and always be knocked out first or second round of the playoffs, or are you going to risk it and see if you can bring your talent to a new organization and hopefully make the jump to the Super Bowl? I don't know. So it's an interesting point. But going off Allen Robinson, if Russell Wilson can make Tyler Lockett the number one receiver multiple weeks during the NFL season, fantasy point wise, and even, yards, receptions, sometimes he'll throw up like 10 receptions, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Allen Robinson will eat, man. He will freaking eat. So I don't know. There's a lot there.
He'll be a beast. And yeah, you could be exactly right. I haven't dug deep enough in to understand if it's an organizational thing or if it's Russell Wilson wants to move on. And the only thing I would say about the coach is, see Tom Brady that, yes, I would let a Hall of Fame coach go in order to keep my stud quarterback, because
it's a money move.
We talked about it before. Yeah, I don't know what happened between organization and Tom Brady, but Belichick and Kraft lost big time. And that franchise they're a disaster at this point.
They're done for many years.
Flushed a dynasty down the drain over egos, money, whatever it might have been. So yeah, I would, but I guess on a personal note, man, for your mom's safety, I'm hoping Wilson goes there, man. Doesn't have to wear shorts forever,
Yes, I think if Russ goes there, he'll have at least like 3 to 4 fantastic years left in him. It will really help the Bears win a Super Bowl, thus allowing my mom to wear pants outside rather than shorts. The winters get cold here in Chicago. We are really rooting for Russell Wilson to come here. If he decides to come, I know he has a no trade clause, so he could technically dictate where he goes. But if he comes to Chicago, I'm buying a Russell Wilson jersey. He will be the best quarterback, I think, of all time for the Chicago Bears. In franchise history, he would probably be the best quarterback of all time that they've ever had. So
not Sexy Rexy Grossman?
No. He is a letdown. I mean, he was probably one of the worst quarterbacks of all time to make it to the Super Bowl. I would say Russell Wilson's a tad bit better than Jay Cutler too, my man. And I love Jay Cutler.
Yeah, no question. No, man, it would be huge for Chicago because their defense is so
unbelievable.
Good. Montgomery took a big step in the second half of last year. You have a good wide receiver. Darnell Mooney looks good. With Russell Wilson, Tyreek Cohen could get back on track when he's healthy. It would change their team overnight. It would be like Tampa. They have pieces in place that instantly you are a contender.
On both sides of the field too.
You're a contender immediately.
Yeah, and the Bears are actually making some moves. They released Buster Skrine. They waived him, so it looked like they were freeing up some cap space. And I mean, it adds up. Moving a guy here and there, it opens up space to make these big deals possible. So the Bears don't have the most cap space out there. I think they're like middle of the pack right now in terms of what cap space is available or what they can spend. But, man, you got to bring a QB in. The last thing I'm going to say before we move on, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, they're on the hot seat. I'll say this every single day until the season starts. They're not looking to draft a quarterback when their jobs are on the spot. They're looking to bring a QB in and instantly make a push for the playoffs to show the Bears fans and the ownership, who, quite frankly, I don't think they care about the Bears team. They just like their money. But my point being, if you're about to get fired, you don't draft a quarterback that the next person who takes your job is going to build. You're going to bring in the best QB you can. So,
absolutely, man. No, I totally agree. It'll be fun to see how that situation plays out. And moving on, Brendan, I think it'd be remiss to not mention the J.J. Watt. I mean, obviously, he's in the kind of back half last few years of his career, but guy's a legend. He's been a fantastic player. I just wanted to make sure and mention him because, he deserves that.
He's a great guy, too, from exactly, on and off the field. Great teammate, teaming up with DeAndre Hopkins again. Yep. So it's cool, man. Big shout out to J.J. Watt. Would have been tight for him to go to Pittsburgh and play with his brother. That would have been pretty cool, too.
Yeah, that would have been fun. It sounds like Arizona's kind of planning on using him more as an interior guy versus an outside rusher at this point of his career. So hey, he could have a couple productive years, maybe
Yeah.
with a role that he's not as much trying to get to the quarterback as he has in years past.
Sure, sure. Absolutely. Cool, man. Yeah, hey, let's move on. I know a lot of the people watching love Dynasty Rankings. I mean, I love Dynasty Rankings. So I know today we're going to talk about our overall rankings, numbers 6 through 10. We're picking out 5 players each episode, and we'll also break down a rookie. Let me go ahead and share my screen right here. All right, Tyler, can you see that all right?
I can see it well.
Excellent, excellent. So based off the last video, the setup's the same. You have my rankings all the way to the left-hand side. Tyler's in the middle, and then a league mate of ours, Tyler's brother, Jason's rankings on the right-hand side. So we took the average. We created an average rankings. This is all pre-draft. Obviously, things can change after free agency opens up, after the NFL draft happens. So this will be subject to change, but these are our pre-draft rankings. So we spoke about rankings 1 through 5. Yep, Christian McCaffrey through Tyreek Hill. Tyler, we hit on how running back scarcity kind of boost players up. I know you'd pick all wide receivers if you could, but due to running back scarcity, we usually see a lot of the running backs work their way up. But now, once we hit rank 6 and below, if you will, or I guess and beyond, that's where we'll start seeing some wide receivers funnel in. We've got Devonta Adams making the cut at 7 overall, DK Metcalf at 9 overall. Pretty soon in the next episode, we got AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, DeAndre Hopkins. So basically, once you get past these elite running backs, that's when you start seeing the elite wide receivers come in and take over. So anything stand out to you before we kind of break down some of these guys?
What stands out to me is just we're kind of into the power running backs here. McCaffrey, Kamara, Barkley, those guys, heavy PPR usage. Nick Chubb doesn't catch a lot of balls. He should catch more than he should or does, but they have Hunt for that. Delvin Cook catches a lot of footballs. Henry catches almost none. But you're talking about 3 of the strongest, just pure running backs in the NFL. They're beasts. They're hard to take down. Derrick Henry he's a monster.
Absolutely.
But all 3 of these guys, very similar, in my opinion, very similar ways they play the game. They're just pure running backs. They run straight forward. They're hard runners. Again, I think both Henry and Chubb should be used more in the passing game, but
yeah,
it doesn't seem like they will be. And with Hunt there, caps Chubb's value, but we've seen it now for a year and a half. Chubb is still a top running back, whether Hunt's on the field or not. He's that good. Delvin Cook, man, if he could play 16 games, he's probably the best running back every year. Maybe not the out-and-out best, but he's probably the RB1 in fantasy every year.
Oh, he's a dog.
Catches a ton of balls, scores a ton of touchdowns. Derrick Henry, I think, deserves to be higher on this list, but at the end of the day, man, he's 27. That hurts no matter who you are. I mean, look at even the wideouts who hold their value longer. Adams, Hopkins, guys like that they're 28, 29 years old. That's why they're not ranked higher. Fair or not in Dynasty, whenever you're over 25, it's like your career is over.
You're 50 in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. So this tier to me is almost more interesting than the top guys, because I feel like the top guys are very predictable. The only one that's vaulted up there is Jonathan Taylor, but this is a heavy hitting tier right here. And what stuck out to me about the wide receivers is when Devante Adams is healthy and Rodgers is slinging it, he is absurd. I mean, he can put up 40 points every single week, and you wouldn't even be surprised. And then for Metcalf, through his first 2 seasons, he is shockingly similar to Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson. So that's some serious company right there.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this before, maybe mid-season, last season. We would like to see DK Metcalf get more involved in the slant game or the short game. With the way that the Seahawks offense was set up, you really only saw him get about 4 receptions, but he'd break one for like 70 yards. So I think DK is a little high. I mean, the only reason why I have him so high, I know this is going to sound a little contradicting. I have him at number 10 overall. He averaged at 9, is because I know that the fantasy community values DK. A lot of people have him as like the best receiver in dynasty football. Some people have him as like the best dynasty asset in fantasy football. I don't know, man. I put him up there because I already know, for example, late in the season, somebody traded 3 first-round picks and Leonard Fournette to get DK Metcalf. I mean, that's absurd to me. But until let's say I believe he has potential to reach where Tyreek Hill is right now, ranked at the 5th overall. Until I see him catching like 10 balls a game and like averaging 100 yards, I can't ever see him breaking this point. I think this will be the highest rank that he will have, in my opinion. So it's my thoughts, man.
And his rank is heavily tied to his age. I mean, he's only 23. He just turned 23 last year. So he won't even be 24 when this season starts. He won't turn 24 till almost the end of next season. So again, it comes down to age. And I think he's at an interesting point right now with the Wilson talks that I'm very interested to see if DK Metcalf is better or worse without Wilson, because Wilson spreads the ball around a lot. You know, a different quarterback might be the type, like, look at an Allen Robinson who gets 15 targets a game. Keenan Allen gets 15 targets a game. I mean, if the new quarterback comes in who probably won't be anywhere as good as Wilson, but he throws the ball 15 times a game to Metcalf, he's probably better than he was with Wilson.
Sure. Especially if you bring in a new guy that relies heavily on a short passing game. You know, you can't sling it as often as Russ.
Exactly. I mean, it's just interesting to look at. We're so heavily taught that it's so important to have a good quarterback. I mean, Allen Robinson's quarterbacks are terrible. The dude has been a top 10 receiver. We're going to say it again, 2 years in a row. It's because he gets
the volume,
15 targets a game. You know, Keenan Allen's played with, granted, his younger years, Rivers was a monster in fantasy, but the last few years, Phillip Rivers is not good. And then obviously Herbert helped Allen, but Keenan Allen's been a top 15 receiver for years and has not played with the best quarterback. So I think at times it gets almost overblown that guys are tied to these quarterbacks that, you know, you might really worry about Metcalf post Wilson, but until we see what it is, I wouldn't have any worries there because of the build, the skill set and all that versus, you know, why Tyreek Hill in the opposite is so high for me is because of Mahomes, you know, so it kind of can work both ways, but I'm with you. I would like to see, we talked about it, a ton of episodes ago, that you want to see DK Metcalf have 10 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown one week more consistently than 4 for 180, you know?
Yeah, he especially tailed off a little bit at the end of the season, the end of the year. So
and that probably was a product of, I mean, Wilson didn't even remotely look like himself down the stretch. And in games where he played well, it was all to Lockett. I mean, Lockett's stats after a while, it was just like, do you know that Metcalf's on the other side, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. I guess going back on my point to kind of convey my thoughts a little bit more, my point is I think DK Metcalf is a sell right now. I think this is the highest value he will ever have, in my opinion. And sometimes it's better to sell those types of players. Now, I know he's really young. I know people drool over these young stud wide receivers, but I think there's a few other wide receivers that will rank higher than him this time next year. For example, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. You know, granted, I know these are pre-draft rankings now, and I still hold true to the rankings that I set for myself. But I'm just saying I don't think DK will ever rank higher, at least for me personally. But I think other wide receivers will be better than DK Metcalf. So it'll be interesting. Honestly, Tyler, he's a guy that I really want to take note on and see where we have him ranked next year. So either he becomes the best dynasty asset of all time, or he kind of falls to that that second tier of wide receiver one. So just my thoughts, man.
Well, and I think those are really good and interesting thoughts, Brendan, because I think Dynasty is really tricky in the sense of what you're talking about. That, as a guy that's owned Godwin since his rookie year, 2 years ago, I probably should have sold Godwin, but I didn't, because you think, well, if I sell this guy and he remains who he is, that's just a terrible sell. The same could be said with Justin Jefferson. I should be shopping Justin Jefferson this offseason, but I won't, because I worry about the same thing. So I think that comes down. I think your point is fantastic, and I think it comes down owner to owner. Do you, not you specifically, but you as an owner, are you the type of owner that tries to maximize value, or are you okay owning an asset that, you could probably plug in DK Metcalf for the next 5-6 years every week, and he's probably going to be fine.
He'll be fine.
Fine to good. Or would you rather cash out for a huge haul and live with that? I think that's a very interesting philosophy that we should put up a poll, Brendan, and see what people like to do, because I think that's very interesting, because it's a gamble either way.
Absolutely. I think a great place for that. We'll ask people to leave your thoughts in the comments. Kind of figuring, do you think DK Metcalf will stay ranked in the top 10 of Dynasty assets, or do you think he falls below? And Tyler, we'll also take that poll on dynastyleaguefootball.com. I think a lot of those guys will be very curious to see kind of his I guess, general, thoughts or landing on the rankings. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I think that's a great idea. DK Metcalf is going to be a topic of conversation for quite some time, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens to him. Tyler, moving on, another guy that we talked about, I believe, last week that was really surprising to me was Michael Thomas. I had Michael Thomas ranked at 11. You had him ranked all the way down at 18, and then Jason had him all the way down at, 19. I had him at 9. You had him down at 16, and Jason had him down at 19. So he averaged out to be, let's see where he's at, 14.66. Now, I know we're not talking about him today, but Michael Thomas is a guy that, in my opinion, still should have the opportunity to crack the top 10 list. So when you factor in Michael Thomas back in the game, he's already the one guy that I think can jump DK Metcalf and bounce Metcalf out of the top 10 rankings. So it's just interesting. It's interesting.
Well, that's another great point, Brendan. Look at where the community as a whole, I mean, I know everybody for the most part on forums and stuff still likes Michael Thomas, still thinks he's a buy low, but look what you could have traded him for after last 2 seasons ago. I mean, he's a perfect example. The rankings and prices and all that are so volatile in Dynasty that you either sell when the time is right, or you have to be comfortable holding. Like, I sold David Johnson after his monster season, and that looked really stupid, but hey, it turned out to be a good call.
Best decision ever, man.
Me trading you Kamara could turn out to be a horrible decision. It's just, I feel his value's at its peak.
It's peaking.
It's just that's what makes Dynasty very fun and almost stressful, is you got to be okay holding guys, because I think you can get a little trade happy, most of us can, because it's like, man, I got to trade this guy. I'm worried about his age, blah, blah, blah. And, I traded a couple monster assets a few years ago, whereas if I held, my team's probably better even still to this day than they are right now, So, and I think a lot of it comes down to, like we've talked about, how fun the rookies are, how fun the draft is, that people trade really good assets for picks, and there's a big bust rate, it's just really interesting. The trading game of Dynasty as a whole is just fascinating to me. It's the funnest part, and it's the most interesting part.
Hey, the off season's more fun than the actual season. So
yeah, because right now, who cares what your build looks like? We don't know.
Yep, it could change.
Like I said, if I go in with only one running back, who cares? It's March.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. You always have another move to make, and that's what's really important. That brings me to the idea of, in my opinion, everybody should have everybody on their team available. There shouldn't be like this guy's not available for the trade blocker. This guy's not available for trade, because if you operate like that, and Tyler, many people in our league do operate like that, and I'm heavily against it. Not trying to bash them at all, but if you tell me, for example, DK Metcalf is untouchable, well, you're missing out on all these gems of an offer that I might be willing to overpay for and receive DK. So
Yeah.
I'm never a proponent of saying that these players are untouchable. You always keep everybody open, in my opinion. Otherwise, you miss out on value to make your team better.
I agree, Brendan. I say it all the time on DLF. Every single trade, I don't care if you're trading Chase Edmonds or Christian McCaffrey, it comes down to the return. That's it.
Absolutely.
If somebody offers you Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, and DK Metcalf for McCaffrey, and you don't take it because you're not moving McCaffrey, that's just not a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. Probably 3 years ago now, I had a ton of guys that were untouchable. Just don't ask. And yeah, it took a while to realize that it's about the return. Just because you don't want to move McCaffrey, if somebody offers you, let's say Stephon Diggs, sure, I get it, because it's probably not worth it. But if that doesn't make him, like you said, untouchable assets is just not a way to go.
Yeah. You miss out. So that's really the name of the game, is know the values. Values fluctuate. Obviously fill roster needs. If you're rebuilding and you have an aging player, take the loss on value if it means you're still getting a good enough return. Otherwise, like for example, Julio Jones. Julio Jones didn't even crack our top 50, I'm pretty sure. We'll have to take a look at it, but
right.
He's retiring on your team now because you didn't sell him a year ago or 2 years ago. So even if you were to sell him at a lost value for like a first and second round pick last year, you have a first and second round pick or that turned into a player that's on your team this year.
Yeah,
so
you don't have to win every trade, which I think
my point.
Is another thing that's very important in Dynasty. I don't think the big trade you and I made, I won that on paper, but I think it makes my team better.
Yes, so, especially in the long run.
I didn't win that on paper. There's no way. But you can't win every trade. And like you said, cashing out on a guy a year too soon is way better. Just trading. I'm kind of stumbling over my thoughts here because it's so interesting because it's stressful, man.
It is.
Dynasty is stressful because you can really set your team back. You can really help your team. You can look like an idiot next year or next week or
one trade will do it.
I mean, I remember texting with you when me and a league mate were talking about trading Corey Davis and Damon Harris. And you and I were like, man, I think you just hold Harris. And that was the week Corey Davis had 190 yards. And it's just like, of course, it never seems to work out either way.
No matter how much you think you can predict how these players will perform, it's the most unpredictable thing. You could have all of the data correct and you'll still be wrong. So
absolutely.
Gambling, baby. It's gambling.
What makes it fun?
Cool.
What makes it very, very fun.
All right, man. So I know that we're about to move on to your favorite rookie in this draft class, Devonta Smith, wide receiver out of Alabama. Tyler, you have him ranked number 1. I have him ranked number 4. This is a player that the more you watch, the more you love. There's really not much that you can say negatively towards Devonta Smith. So this is the rookie breakdown. Let's hear your thoughts first, since I know you have him ranked number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think what sticks out the most for me about Devonta Smith is a lot of people are obsessed in the Dynasty community about breakout age. And obviously Devonta Smith is older. We talked about that last week. How he's gotten better and better and better and better every season, to me, is almost frightening. So what does he do at the next level? I mean, I think look at players' bodies, look at how their skill set changes. Like when an NFL staff gets their hands on Devonta Smith, what happens from there?
Mm-hmm.
And I highlighted a few points, kind of like the other guys. He's a very natural wide receiver. He's kind of labeled a pure football player, which means he's not really trying out there necessarily. His head doesn't have to focus on his footwork or catching the ball. It's all just very natural to
Mm-hmm.
him, which I think,
Instinctual.
yeah, is a big thing. He's a playmaker. Another guy out of Alabama, he's just a phenomenal route runner. I don't know what it is about Alabama receivers or, kind of the guys out of the SEC specifically, but fantastic route runner. He's explosive out of his cuts, which makes him very difficult to cover.
Mm-hmm.
He has big play speed, but he's not like crazy fast. So it's kind of interesting to highlight that point. He forces teams to keep their safety deep, impacts game plans. He's quick release off the line. He has a lot of the same highlights as like a typical really elite wide receiver coming
Mm-hmm.
out.
He's going to be good.
Yeah, he's a threat score on every touch. I mean, we saw that in the bowl games. The dude's just unbelievable. I mean, he had a very, very, very special senior year, but you just knew he could score at any point, whether it was a 2-yard screen pass or a 50-yard play.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty dangerous on 50-50 balls, which is kind of surprising because he's not the biggest guy. He's actually pretty small.
He's very slender.
Yeah, very slender, which again, I think when the NFL gets their hands on him, I think he'll be over 200 pounds. But
yeah, he'll beef up. I was looking real quick, Tyler. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
There's not like any elite receivers like below 200 pounds. There's a couple, but it's really rare to see. All of them are like 200 to 215, if you will.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to look for a comparison for Devonta Smith because there really isn't one because of his size. But, I look specifically at a guy like Calvin Ridley who plays at an elite level, and Calvin Ridley's very thin. He's very lean. He's not jacked or muscled to the max necessarily like some of the other guys, but has found a way to be a borderline elite receiver, based on route running and skills and hands. So I think Devonta Smith could get there. He's a very good athlete. He's durable. Not a whole lot of injury concerns. Obviously, he got banged up in the national title game, or else he would have had about 400 yards, I think.
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And he has all the potential, honestly, to be an elite number 1 receiver at the NFL level when you factor in all his skill set. And hey, man, he might be one of those people that we talked about when Amari Cooper put on all the muscle that I don't know if I think beefing up a little bit might help him at the next level, but I wouldn't mess with his body a ton because he might not be the same player.
He's got to add a few pounds, though. You got to get a little bit bigger.
A little bit bigger for sure, but
when you get bigger, you can be a little more aggressive and you maintain your ground a little bit more. He's incredibly light.
He is very light.
So interesting. Yeah, he set the SEC record for receiving yards at 1,856, had 117 receptions, 23 teeters, and he averaged 15.9 yards per reception. Guy's only 22. His birthday's not till the fall, so he'll be entering the league at the age of 22. He's 6'1", $175. You hit all of the points I was going to hit for his pros. Great hands, great ball tracking abilities, route running, very versatile. That's what's really attractive to NFL organizations is, can this player fit my scheme? And yes, he could fit almost any scheme out there. He can play a deep ball game. He can catch slants. He does literally everything. So I'm excited. I think he could fit anywhere. And that's big. That's big if you can fit any offensive scheme. The only con, Tyler, I have, which we just spoke about, is he has a slender body frame. He could get bullied a little bit, but I'm assuming he'll beef up instantly, get a little bit stronger. Now to the most important question of them all. You said there's really no comparisons. I agree. This one was a little more interesting because his height and weight is just a lot. It's very unique. The weight especially is very unique for an NFL caliber receiver. I mean, even guys who are like 5'9", like Brandon Cooks, guys like that, they're still over 200 pounds. So I'm going to scroll down here. Tyler, you ready to see who a couple comparisons that that I think would be kind of close. One of them I picked based on body size. The other one I actually pulled, I read from multiple different articles and had a kind of a consensus view. You ready?
I'm interested to see if the guy I'm going to throw at you is on here, Brendan. So yeah.
All right. Why don't you say it first? Cause I have it typed. So.
Okay. The comparison for me based on his size, his skill set, his elite skill set. Who do you think it is, Brendan?
You tell me, baby, because I got it typed down, so we'll know. You tell me.
All right. Well, he was an elite receiver and arguably the best receiver in the game before mentally. I'm not sure what happened to him, but Antonio Brown and Devonta Smith compare very, very well. There you go.
Bing, bing, bing.
Which really, I mean, I think should obviously Antonio Brown in his prime was a very special talent, an exceptional player. He played with a fantastic quarterback. I mean, Roethlisberger helped him.
Sure.
Everybody that's kind of worried about his size, because, you know, I can also see the comparables to Hollywood Brown, who has kind of struggled to assimilate to the NFL based on size.
He's pretty short too. He's like 5'9".
Yeah, and he's lean. So, you know, I can see both sides of the equation. I think Smith is a better all-around player than Hollywood Brown ever was coming out. But if you're worried about drafting him on size, see Antonio Brown. You know, that would be my only person to really point out.
Exactly. You know, I picked out Desean Jackson. You know, Desean Jackson had a few elite years. He was the closest I could find towards height and weight to a body frame, similar to Devonta Smith. I think Devonta Smith is more talented, and I also think he's a more versatile player than Desean Jackson was. So one thing I want to actually note out too, which could be pretty similar to Desean in this sense, is he's a weapon on special teams. Devonta Smith could play punt returner. I mean, he won't because they don't want to have him get domed every single punt or kickoff, but he is very talented on special teams, which is more attractive as well. So we'll see what happens. Tyler, I had the prediction, and this happened pre Tyrell Williams signing, even though I don't think this really affects it too much. Maybe it does, but I actually thought the Detroit, that should be Lions, not Lions, but I thought the Detroit Lions would take a stab at him if he was there at the 7th overall. I think he's going to go top 10.
Yeah, I expect him to go top 10 as well. I've seen a ton of number 3 to Miami. That's
crazy. That's crazy.
It's really high. I don't know if that's more just the link to Tua, who obviously he played with. But no, I'm with you. I think Smith goes before Chase. I think Smith will be the first wideout off the board. I think there's just too much there to love, and too much that if it hits at the next level, he's an elite wide receiver. And kind of like we talked about before, unfortunately for Jamar Chase, what have you done for me lately? He didn't play. You know, I think had he played, I think he probably would be the first receiver taken. But what Devonta Smith did last year was absurd. I mean, I watched a lot of the Alabama games because I really like him and Waddle, but I mean, every week I watched, it was just like you expected him to slow down. It's just like, oh, he's got 100 yards and 3 touchdowns at halftime. It was just ridiculous.
You just love Alabama receivers, my man.
I do. It's something about their route running. I mean, every year I look at some of the best receivers, man. Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, just guys that are steady as they go fantasy players. You know, it's just
Ridley, hopefully Judy, Ruggs.
Ridley, hopefully Judy, Ruggs. We'll hold our breath on that one. That's for sure.
Nice, man. Nice. So it'll be real interesting to see. You know, the NFL draft is like a month and a half away. I think it's like mid to late April, if I'm not mistaken. It happens quickly. It happens quickly. So we'll know a lot more then. We'll obviously know a lot more once free agency opens up, see if any of these organizations are more interested in going after some free agent receivers. You know, Juju's still out there. Godwin, Galladay, if they don't get franchise tag. So Allen Robinson. So it all plays a part into what these organizations are thinking and how they will make their draft selection. But Tyler, that's all I've got today. Is there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
I was just going to say, following up on your point, man, the fun of the NFL offseason is about to start. I mean, free agency starts in 11 or 12 days. I mean, it's gonna start to get fun because right now it's all rumors. It's all you're expecting something to happen with Watson or just nothing's going on. But man, when free agency gets rolling, we talked about it. It sounds like a lot more guys are going to get franchised, and we're hoping all of a sudden Green Bay sounds like they're going to franchise Aaron Jones.
Boo.
Like, so it could go from a very like heavy hitting free agency class to just everybody stays where they are that matters, you know?
Yeah, but that's the whole fun and games of the rumor portion. So before all these lame moves happen, we at least had the hope and the imagination of being able to see these players or think about these players being on different rosters. So that's the beauty of the game, man. It's like buying a lottery ticket. You know you're not going to win, but you think about what you're going to do with all that money when you do win. So fantastic. Tyler, I always enjoy doing the show, my friend. Go ahead, say what you want, say your goodbyes. This was a fantastic episode, man.
Yeah, this was good stuff. I'm really interested to see once rookie drafts are over for Dynasty, as a community as a whole in a single QB league. I'm very interested to see what turns out to be the average, the consensus of where everybody went, because I could see ATN, Harris, Smith, Chase all going number one in different drafts, different formats, depending on who you really, really like. And I can't remember a draft that there was 4 guys you can make a legit argument for that could easily go there. And as you and I talked about, man, if I own the 1-1 and the 1-2, I'd take both receivers. You know, I wouldn't even look
baby.
for running backs. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, perfect. Hey, thank you to everybody listening. Enjoy your week. Next week we'll break down our rankings between 11 and 15. We'll also break down a new rookie. So stay smooth, stay safe. Just remember,